It's your boy, Terry Spears, and I'm coming to you right now. We about to read. I'm starting this new series that I got going on. Not that I got going on. That I want to start. Is like a book series where I get a book and I read the book. And I want y'all to. I'm starting a book series where I read a chapter, two, I don't know how long, but I start reading and I want y'all to start reading with me so I can better my comprehension, I can better my vocabulary, just better myself for me, cause I wanna, but I'm learning about this internet. They got a billion people watching you. Even if nobody watching you, or you feel like they got a billion people watching you, bro. So let me just get into it. The book I'm gonna be reading today is The Miseducation of the Negro, the original. I started reading this book already, so I'm gonna just start where I started at. No, let me do it. Do it right, bro. Let me just start. Chapter 1. Which the Negro is figureheaded. History does not furnish a case of elevation of a people by ignoring the thought and aspiration of the people thus served. This is slightly dangerous ground here, however, for the Negro mind has been all but perfectly enslaved in that he has been trained to think that it is desired of him. The highly educated Negro do not like to hear anything uttered against this peculiar procedure because they make their living in this way and they feel that they must defend the system. Few miseducated Negroes ever act otherwise, and if they so express themselves, they are easily crushed by the large majority to the contrary, so that the procession may move on without interruption. The result then is that the Negro, thus miseducated, are of no service to themselves and none to the white man. The white man does not need the Negro's professional, commercial, or industrial assistance. That's why we practicing. And as a result of the multiplication of the medical appliances, he no longer need them in drudgery of menial service. Ooh, boy. The highly educated Negroes, moreover, do not need the Negro professional or commercial classes because Negroes have been taught that whites can serve them more efficiently in these spheres. Reduce them to teaching and preaching. The Negro will have no outlet. The Negro will have no outlet but to down a blind alley. The Negro will have no outlet but to go down a blind alley. And if the sort of education which they are now receiving is to enable them to find a way out of their present difficulties. Chapter 4. The education under outside control. And I just gotta warm up a little bit. That's it. I gotta warm up. I gotta get my vocal cords, This is off the strength. Chapter 4. Education under outside control. In the new program, educating the Negro, what will become the white teacher of the race? Someone recently inquired. This is a simple question requiring only a brief answer. The remaining few Christian workers who went south not so long after the Civil War established schools and churches to lay the foundation on which we should now be building more wisely than we do. We will honor as a mystery, a martyr throne, anima be upon him who will utter a word derogatory to the record of these heroes and heroes and heroines. I never seen heroines before. We would pay high tribute also to unselfish Southerners like Haygood, Curry, Waffner, Northern, and Vance, and to the white man of our time who believed that the only way to elevate people is to help them to help themselves. The unfortunate successors of the Northern missionary teachers of Negroes, however, have thoroughly demonstrated that they have no useful function in the life of the Negro. They have not the spirit of their predecessors and do not measure up to the requirements of educators desired to accredited colleges. Accredited colleges. Oh, accredited. I'm thinking that shit. I'm saying it gotta be accredited, but I'm like, no, that's not it. I never seen that word before, but I know like, so their predecessors do not measure up to the requirements of the educator desired in accredited colleges. If Negro institutions are to be as efficient as those for the whites in the South, the same high standards for the educators to direct them should be maintained. Negro schools cannot go forward with such a load of inefficiency, and especially when the white president of these institutions are often less scholarly than Negroes who have to serve under them. By the law and custom, the white president and teachers of Negro schools are prevented from participating freely in the life of the Negro. They occupy, therefore, a most uncomfortable dual position. When the author once taught in a school with a mixed faculty, the white women connect with the institution will bow to him in patronizing fashion when on the campus, but elsewhere they did not see him. A white president of one Negro school never entertained a Negro in his home, preferring to shift such guests to the students' dining room. Another white president of a Negro college maintains on the campus a Gus cottage which Negroes can enter only as servants. Still another such functionary does not allow students to enter his home through the front door. Negroes trained under such conditions without protest become downright cowards, and in life will continue as slaves in spite of their emancipation. Nominal. What different method of approach or what sort of appeal would one make to the Negro child that cannot be made just as well as a white teacher? Someone asked not long ago, to be frank, we must concede that there is no particular body of facts that Negro teachers can impart to children of their own race that may not be just as easily presented by persons of other race. Persons of another race, if they have the same attitude as Negro teachers, but in most cases, tradition, race, hate, segregation, and terrorism make such a thing impossible. The only thing to do in this case then is to deal with the situation as it is. Yet we should not take the position that a qualified white person should not teach in a Negro school for a certain work which temporarily some whites may be able to do better than the Negroes. There can be no objection to such service. But if the Negro is to be forced to live in the ghetto, he can more easily develop out of it under his own leadership than under that which is superimposed. The Negro will never be able to show all of his originality as long as his efforts are directed from without by those who socially prescribe him. Such friends will unconsciously keep him in the ghetto. Herein, however, the emphasis is not upon the necessity However, the emphasis is not upon the necessity for separate systems but upon the need for common sense schools and teachers who understand and continue in sympathy with those whom they instruct. Those who take the position to the contrary have the idea that education is merely a process of imparting information. One who can give out these things or devise an easy plan for so doing. This is an educator. In a sense, this is true, but it accounts for most of the troubles of the Negro. Real education means to inspire people to live more abundantly, to learn to begin with life as they find it, make it better. But the instruction so far given Negroes in colleges and universities has worked to the contrary. In most cases, such graduates have merely increased the number of malcontents who offer no program for changing the undesirable conditions about which they complain. One should rely upon protest only when it is supported by a constructive program. Unfortunately, Negroes who think as the author does and dare express themselves as are branded as opponents or interracial cooperation as a Negro. As a matter of fact, however, such Negroes are the real workers in carrying out a program of interracial effort. Cooperation implies equality of the participants in the particular task at hand. On the contrary, however, the usual way now is that for the whites to work out their plans behind closed doors, have them approved by a few Negroes serving normality on a board. Normality. No manually on a board. What's that word, bro? I'll turn that major on. That one right there. Normality on a board and then employ a white or mixed staff to carry out their program. This is not interracial cooperation. It is merely that. It is merely the ancient idea of calling upon the inferior to carry out the orders of the superior. To express this is not interracial cooperation. It is merely the ancient idea of calling upon the inferior to carry out the orders of the superior. To express it in post-classic language, as did Jesse O. Thomas, the Negroes do the conning and the whites the operating. This unsound attitude of friends of the Negro is due to the persistence of the medieval idea of controlling underprivileged classes behind closed doors. These friends say you need to be careful in advancing Negroes to commanding position unless it can be determined beforehand that they will do what they are told to do. You can never tell when some Negroes will break out and embrace their friends after being advanced to positions of influence. Some of them have been known to run amok and advocate society equality or demand for their race the privileges of democracy when they should restrict themselves to education and religious development. It is often said too that the time is not ripe for Negroes. It's not right for Negroes to take over the administration of their institution, for they do not have the contacts for raising money. But what becomes this argument when we remember what Booker T. Washington did for Tuskegee and observe the R. Moulton and John Hope are doing today as the first Negro president of the Howard University. Mordecai W. Johnson raised more money for the institution among philanthropists than all of its former presidents combined. Furthermore, if after 3 generations the Negro colleges have not produced men qualified to administrate their affairs, such an admission as an eloquent argument that they have failed ingloriously and should be immediately closed. Someone asked me how I connect my criticism of the higher education of the Negroes with new developments in the sphere, and especially with the 4 universities in the South, which are to be made possible by the million obtained from governments, boards, and philanthropists. I believe that the establishment of these 4 centuries of learning centers of learning at Washington, Atlanta, Nashville, and in New Orleans can be so carried out as the mark and impulse in the development of Negro race. On the other hand, there is just as much possibility for a colossal failure of the whole scheme if these institutions are to be replica of universities like Harvard, Yale, Columbia, and Chicago, if the men who are to administrate them and teach in them are to be the products of roll-top desk terrorists who have never touched the life of the Negro, the money thus invested would be just as profitable spent if it is used to buy peanuts to throw at the animals in the circus. Some of the thought behind the new educational movement is to provide in the South for education the Negroes who are now crowding northern universities, especially the medical schools, many of which would not admit Negroes because of the radical friction in hospital practice. In the rush merely to make special provisions for these undesirable students, however, the institutions which are to train them may be established on false ideas and make the same blunders of the smaller institutions which have preceded them. It will hardly help a poisoned patient to give him a large dose of poison. In higher institutions for Negroes organized along lines required for people differently circumstanced, some few may profit for being further grounded in the fundamentals, others may become more adept in the exploitation of their people, and a smaller number may cross the divide and join the whites in useful service. But the larger majority of the products of such institutions will increase rather than diminish the load which the masses have had to carry ever since the emancipation. Such ill-prepared workers will have no foundation upon which to build. The education of any people will begin with the people themselves, but Negroes thus trained have been dreaming about the ancient of Europe and about those who have tried to imitate them. In the course of Harvard, for example, students were required to find out whether Perculars was justly charged with trying to supplant the worship of Jupiter with that of Juno. Since the time Negroes thus engaged have learned that they would have been much better prepared for work among the Negroes in the Black Belt if they had spent the time learning why John Jasper of Hunnnhuh fame joined the Joshua in containing that the planet should still in the middle of the line while he fought for the battle the second time. Talking the other day with one of the men now given the millions to build the Negro universities in the South. However, I find that he is of the opinion that accredited institutions can be established in mushrooms fashions with terrorism out of touch with the people. In other words, you can go almost anywhere and build a $3 million plant, place and charge a white man to do what you want accomplished, and in a short while he can secure or have trained to order the men necessary to make the university. We want here, we will say, a man who has the master's degree in English, send me another who has his doctorate degree in psychology, and I can use one more in physics. Now, experience has shown that men of this type may fail in, but a university cannot be established with such raw recruits. The author once had some experience in trying to man a college in this fashion. The result was a story that would make an interesting headline for the newspaper. When Dr. William Banley Harper was establishing the University of Chicago, he called to the headship of the various departments only men who had distinguished themselves in the creative world. Some had advanced degrees, some had not, several of them, some had not. Some had advanced degrees, some had not. Several of them had never done all form of graduated work at all. All of them, however, were men who thought was moving the world. It may be argued that the Negroes have no such man No such men and must have them trained, but such a thing cannot be forced as we are now doing it. It would be much better to stimulate the development of the more progressive teachers of the old than experiment with novice produced by the graduation of higher education. And never seen that. Experiment with the novice procedure by the graduation of higher education. That the graduation of the doctorate especially dawned upon the author the other day, made clearly than ever when a friend of his rushed into his office saying, "I have been trying to see you for several days. I have just failed to get a job for which I have been working, and I am told that I cannot expect a promotion till I get my doctor degree." Doctor degree. Degree, bitch? This is what he called it. He sorry. He cannot pronounce the words, but he is determined to have the doctor degree to get the job in sight. That's me. I'm determined, so I'm practicing my words, so when I go on the interviews and people, I can be, knowledgeable and still be able to speak for my people. The shameful status of the higher education due to a larger measure to low standards of institutions, with a tendency toward the NegusLomane procedure to get a job or to hold one. You go in and stay into the grind. You out a dark degree and you do not have to worry any further. The assumption is that almost any school will be glad to have you thereafter and you will receive a larger salary. Investigate has shown, however, that men who have the doctorate not only lose touch with the common people, but they do not do as much creative work as those of less formal education. After having this honor conferred upon them, these so-called scholars often rest on their oars. Few persons have thought of the seriousness of such inertia among men. I know that word. Among men who are put in the lead of things because of meeting secretary requirements of frontier universities which are not on the frontier. The General Education Board and the Julius Roseward Fund have a policy which may be a practical solution, a partial solution of the undeveloped Negro college instructor program. These foundations are giving Negro teachers scholarships to improve themselves for work in the spare in which they are now laboring in the South. These boards are rule do not send one of the schools to work for the doctor degree. If they find a man of experience and good judgment showing possibilities for growth, they will provide for him to study a year or more to refresh his mind with whatever there is new in his field. Experience has shown that teachers thus have later done much better work than doctors of philosophies made to order. The Northern University, moreover, cannot do graduate work for Negroes along certain lines when they are concentrating on the education need of people otherwise circumstanced. The Graduate School of Negroes studying chemistry is with George W. Carver at Tuskegee. At least 100 youths should wait daily upon the words of these sciences to be able to pass on to the generations upon its great knowledge of agricultural chemistry. Negroes desiring to specialize in agriculture should do it with workers like T.M. Campbell and B.F. Herbert among the Negro farmers of the South. In education itself, the situation is the same. Neither Columbia nor Chicago can give an advanced course in Negro rural education, for their work in education is based primarily upon what they know of the educational needs of the whites. So such work for Negroes must be done under the direction of the trailblazers who are building schoolhouses and reconstructing the educational program of those in the backwoods. Leaders of this type can supply the foundation upon which a university of realistic education may be established. We offer no arguments here against earning advanced degrees, but these should come as honors conferred for training, crowning with scholastic distinction, not to enable a man to increase his salary or to find a better planned position. The schools which are now directing attention exclusively to these external marks of learning will not contribute much of the uplift of the Negro. In Cleveland, all along, the author found at the Western Reserve University something unusually encouraging. A native of Mississippi, a white man trained in the Northern University and now serving as a professor in one, has under him in psychology a Negro student from Georgia. For his dissertation, this Negro is collecting the sayings of his people in everyday life. Their morning gathering, their remarks about the weather, their comments on things which happen around them, their reaction to things which strike them as unusual, and the efforts to interpret life as the panorama passes before them. The white Mississippian and black Georgian are on the right way to understand the Negro, and if they do not fall out about social equality, they will serve the Negro much better than those who are trying to find out whether Henry IV lusted more after Anna Boleyn than after Catherine of Aragon, or whether Elizabeth was justly styled as more untruthful than Philip II of Spain. Chapter 4, Education Under Outside Control. That's a chapter you read for the day. So we read the chapter today, and I'm going to explain. I was trying to understand, like, I get what he was saying. Miseducation of the Negro. I'm trying to get better. He said we don't need scholars to teach people. We need a mix of people. My brain, I'm just trying to, It's like this book was wrote in 1930s, and that shit is talking about what's going on today. I ain't gonna lie. I don't see how schools is taught, brought up, but I'm starting to feel like I'm starting to understand, like, the reason for schools. Like, if I was taught this growing up, I would have went to ABC, but it ain't about blaming nothing. It's about getting better. Y'all see me messing up on some words, but I'm getting better. And what I need to do right now, what I need to be part of it, because this was a trial to see how this shit gonna be for me. At first, I was nervous because I was reading the words, but then I was like, man, let me get into it. But then once it started flowing, I started getting into it. And I don't know how it sounds to the public, but I'm working on my public speaking and, my public reading, because I ain't even about to try to point no finger at y'all. But yeah, I'm getting better. a couple words. What I need to incorporate is I need to give me a book, and when I read it, and the word that I don't know, I'm gonna write them down. And the words that I'm having trouble with, I'm gonna write them down too. And then I'm gonna go over them. Cause I caught myself one word that I had trouble with in the beginning. I stayed there. I got the word, and when it came across the word again later on, I just flowed through it. And I'm just, you know, flowing, getting better. And how that was, y'all liked it, whatever. I'm gonna start setting this up and having this view, like different views. I'm just getting better, and this is my content. I just want to push forward, and this is with the content I'm making. And yeah, this is my chapter for the day. Read my chapter of the day, and down inside the road. I'm waiting for one of my videos to upload. Oh, it's gonna be in slow-mo. I don't want it to be in slow-mo, but I got it to put it in slow-mo. When I put it in slow-mo, I'm gonna, yeah, go mode, and then I'm gonna, yeah.
Fine.
I'm gonna get back on that PC. I'll put it to the time on. And then I'm gonna go, I gotta go to the gym. I wanna wash my car. I'm posting this, I'm putting this, I'm editing and taking this down, so I'm about to come back, and I'm about to come back live, but I gotta take this one down. Y'all messing with me.